I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to be ranking Jane Austen's heroines from her main 6 novels. I have 8 main character heroines from Jane Austen's novels that I'm going to be ranking from my least favorite all the way up to my very favorite heroine. There are some truly wonderful characters in Jane Austen, but I think that the ladies in Jane Austen are just such wonderful, beautiful, complex characters. Just nobody writes main characters where you really get inside their head, you know, the way that Jane Austen does. Before we dive in, I'm going to reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're going to shout out somebody randomly. Today's shout out goes to Novelle Novels. I'll leave a link to their channel down in the description, so be sure to go over and subscribe to them. And please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a big thumbs up if you love all things Jane Austen. So unfortunately, we have to start way down at the bottom of the list with my least favorite Jane Austen heroine. And that, I'm afraid, has to be Catherine Morland from Northanger Abbey. This is kind of a complex issue for me because in many ways, I am very much like Catherine Morland, but I see in her all of the faults and the flaws that I do not like in myself. And so then I don't like her character because it hits a little too close to home. She's imaginative and naive and gullible and a little bit foolish, but she has a good heart and she is humble. She has a willingness to learn. So, I mean, she does have good qualities in her, and she's a very endearing character. She really is just so innocent and sweet. But I don't like about myself that I can be naive and sheltered and gullible. I wish that I was like a better judge of character and things. And I definitely tend to have these flights of fancy where I get all excited about a novel and go off in my own little world that I've imagined. And then somebody has to pull me back into reality the way that Catherine Morland does. So unfortunately, that's why she's at the bottom of this list. Because I see too much of myself in her. I'm sure that any therapists or psychologists are just gonna have a field day with me and my weird ways that I relate to Jane Austen characters. Number 7 is Jane Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. Jane is very sweet and lovely, but she's just a little too optimistic. She just thinks well of everybody, and she can't understand that people might be evil. She excuses their bad behavior, and because she is so sweet and trusting and optimistic about everything, then evil people that can then take advantage of her, and they take advantage of her generosity and kindness. So again, here is a character who is naive and gullible and who does not always have good judgment about other people. And that is one of the things that I dislike the most in my own character. So what you gonna do? And also with Jane, sometimes because she is so constantly optimistic, her character, her personality feels a little bland. Especially because we're constantly comparing Jane to Elizabeth. And Elizabeth has this biting sarcasm that gives her a little bit of, pepper in her personality. And then Jane just feels very bland by comparison. I think if the main character were just Jane, we would like her better. But because we're always comparing her to Elizabeth, she's a little bit further down the list. Number 6 is Marianne Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. I think one of the genius things about Jane Austen is that there's some aspect of all of her characters, that at least all of her main heroines, that I see something of myself in them. With Marianne, it's her passion. She just gets so excited about things. She gets excited about poetry and the beauties of nature and art and literature and music. One of her big things is that she loves to play the pianoforte, and of course I'm a pianist myself, so whenever I read Sense and Sensibility, I usually sort of put myself in Marianne's shoes. However, it does annoy me about Marianne that she isn't a little more circumspect. And again, this might be because we're always comparing Marianne to Eleanor, and Eleanor is sensible. Eleanor has common sense, and she is a much more steady type of character. So by comparison, Marianne seems even more flighty and silly. I always end up feeling embarrassed for Marianne embarrassed with Marianne when she confronts Willoughby at the ball and basically embarrasses herself in front of all of London. She is just so overwhelmed by her emotions that she doesn't care that she is making a spectacle of herself and her family. I can definitely appreciate the strength of that kind of passion. And I love that about her personality, but also it's just like, girl, rein it in, okay? It's a little too extreme. You need to control yourself. But again, that is an aspect of my own personality that I do not like. I'm a very passionate, outspoken, expressive person. And I feel like I put my foot in my mouth and embarrass myself sometimes because of that. And I often feel overwhelmed with my strength of my emotions. Sometimes my emotions just feel like this tidal wave that I am drowning in. And I hate that feeling. And so when I see Marianne going through the same thing, I don't like it. I don't like that part of myself, and I don't like that part of her. And so that's why Marianne is not one of my favorites. Number 5 is Fanny Price from Mansfield Park. When I first read Mansfield Park, I really did not like Fanny Price because I felt like she had no backbone, and I was like, just stand up for yourself. Just tell them all off. Demand that they respect you. But when I have reread it, I've come to appreciate her character much more. She is not an extrovert, and she's really not in a financial position to be able to tell everyone off. She's an introvert. She's quiet, but that does not mean that she is weak. She has a very strong personality, and even when other people around her are all pressuring her to do something that she thinks is wrong, she stands her ground, even though it makes things very uncomfortable for her. The more I reread Mansfield Park, the more I really start to appreciate this quiet strength that Fanny has. Another thing I really like about her character is that she's very observant. She may just sort of be sitting in the background, but she is noticing everything that is going on, right down to the little details. I think part of why she does that is a kind of survival instinct. So she's noticing everything so that she can navigate whatever situation might come up. But in many ways, that also makes her a much more thoughtful and generous and kind person because she notices when people need help or if they just kind of need a shoulder to lean on. She is right there supporting and encouraging, and she's showing them compassion. Fanny Price has such a heart full of love to give, and she really is a complex and beautiful person. All right, number 4 is Eleanor Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. Eleanor has that reputation of being the steady one, the responsible one, the one who takes care of the everyday business of living. And you don't need to worry about Eleanor because she has it handled. And you don't need to be careful around Eleanor because she can take it. She is tough. And on the inside, she is dying. I don't know how Jane Austen does it, but again, here is a character where I really identify with that part of her. In most social situations, I fulfill that role, the responsible one, the one who is organizing the event. If you have a problem, go to Kaylee because she has the answer and she has the first aid kit and she has the receipts for whatever it was. I am the one with the plan. And on the inside, I'm just tired. I'm tired of being tough. And I'm tired of handling things. I really love that we get to see past Eleanor's facade of toughness and I can handle this. And we get to see how tender her heart really is and how gentle she really is with everyone around her. She handles all those family burdens because she loves her family. She loves her friends. She treats them with such kindness and such gentleness. She truly inspires me. She's really just such an incredibly strong person. And then when she is grieving because all of her hopes of falling in love and having a romance with Edward Ferrars have been dashed and she's been betrayed, even then she keeps her composure because she doesn't want to embarrass her family. She doesn't share how much she is suffering with the people around her because she doesn't want to add to their burdens. She handles it herself. But I love that later on through the book, we get to see more and more character development with her, and she finally begins to open up and share with those around her and stop taking on so many burdens on herself. I really love her character development where she kind of lets go a little bit. She stops holding on to things so tight and holding on to controlling the circumstances so much. And she finally gets her happy ending. She gets to relax a little bit. And now we are up to the top 3, my favorite Jane Austen heroines. This has been such a hard list to make because all of these women are so inspiring and beautiful and wonderful. So, oh my goodness, the top 3, how can I even find the words to describe these ladies? Number 3 is Anne Elliot from Persuasion. Anne Elliot is another character who she has it handled. She carries all the family burdens. Anne is the one that everybody comes to her to complain, and they expect her to magically find some kind of solution. She is the one who gives up going to the party to stay home and take care of the sick child. She is the one who gives up her own comfort in order to provide comfort for other people. And she's looked down on and she's pushed to the side, and she never complains. She's one tough lady, I tell you. And she's a person who, with all of the heartache and the tragedy in her past, first of all, from losing Captain Wentworth, and then also losing her mother had passed away. But even with all of that tragedy, Anne is just more kind and more compassionate and more patient with other people. And she's a very sensitive person. You know, every little thing affects her much more deeply than it does the people around her. But in a way, she turns that sensitivity into a strength. Through most of the book in Persuasion, Anne is thrown into very uncomfortable social situations that seem designed to cause her pain, emotional pain, mental pain. There are just so many awkward social scenes where she has to try to smooth things over. She's under an incredible amount of stress, just the anxiety. Ugh, I mean, man, the whole book gives me social anxiety, just seeing Anne having to deal with all of this. And yet, she does it with absolute poise and courtesy. She's always thinking of others before herself. She's just so generous. She's generous with her time, with her energy. The woman is a saint, okay? And Captain Wentworth doesn't even deserve her because she is a saint. I just love Anne. And number 2 on my list is Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. Elizabeth Bennet is just so charming, so enchanting. Her dialogue sparkles. She's such a complex person. She really has an interesting personality. And I think that she shines so much in this book, not just because of her witty dialogue that she's known for and her fun, witty sarcasms and things, but also I think because of her good heart. She says that she loves to laugh at her neighbors and find fault with them and, find that humorous side to life. But I think that in many ways, all of that witty dialogue is just almost like a mask that she wears for other people. And on the inside, she's more of a serious personality. She tries, anyway, to be circumspect. She's always kind of analyzing the people around her and trying to make out their character. And of course, when the new people in town move in, the Bingleys and Mr. Darcy, she immediately starts to puzzle through and figure out their personalities and what makes them tick. That is the part of Elizabeth's personality that I relate to the most. Because I find myself doing that almost subconsciously. I'm always puzzling through and kind of analyzing people and trying to figure out, well, what are they going to say or do next? Elizabeth is just so intelligent, and I think she feels kind of stifled in her environment in her little town. So then when she meets a grand puzzle like Mr. Darcy, who has such conflicting, contradictory things in his nature, then she is absolutely intrigued. There are so many aspects to Elizabeth's personality that I really, really love. There definitely could be a case made that Elizabeth Bennet is probably one of the most incredible, complex, fantastically well-written characters in all of literature. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you there. However, despite that, Elizabeth Bennet is not my favorite heroine. Oddly enough, or maybe not oddly, I chose my favorite heroine for the same reason that I chose my least favorite heroine, because I see a lot of myself in her. It's Emma Woodhouse from my favorite novel by Jane Austen, Emma. Whereas Catherine Morland was my least favorite because a lot of the things that I saw in her personality or things that I don't like in my own personality. Emma is my favorite because a lot of the things that I see in her personality are things that I do like in my own personality. I feel like all of these heroines, they're just so relatable that everyone can find something to relate to in them. But for me, the one thing that makes Emma Woodhouse really stand out as my absolute favorite heroine is that she is always striving to be better. She definitely has her faults, but she's always trying to make things better for other people, trying to make herself better. I guess you could say she's a bit of a perfectionist. She just wants everything to be nice. One of the things I really love about Emma is that she's just so friendly. She just loves being around people. She befriends Harriet Smith, even though Harriet can do nothing for Emma. She's not expecting to get anything back from Harriet. Just out of her own generosity and friendliness, she befriends Harriet. Now, of course, she does also befriend Harriet because she kind of wants a project. And I'm sort of that way a little bit too, where I always like to have a project. But Emma's project is that she's going to benefit Harriet and help to educate her and help to introduce her into society. So all of Emma's projects for Harriet are for what Emma thinks is Harriet's own good. Of course, by the end of the novel, Emma has had a lot of character development, and she has realized that, it's really not up to her to make things better for other people. They need to control their own lives and make their own decisions. But I think that her intentions are good. All of her meddling in other people's affairs is just her good heart wanting to give and wanting to encourage and support people and help them find happiness. Of course, she goes about it in all these silly, foolish ways. But by the end, she has learned some wisdom. I think Emma just has so much compassion and kindness in her heart. She doesn't quite know what to do with it all. And she just needs a little wisdom to sort of temper her behavior and to kind of guide her in better channels for showing that compassion and kindness and generosity. Oh, who am I kidding? The only reason that Emma is my favorite character is because George Knightley is my favorite hero. I just love Emma because she gets to fall in love with George. So of course, be on the lookout for my other videos about my favorite heroes and my favorite villains and villainesses and some side characters as well. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know who is your favorite Jane Austen heroine and why. Or maybe what might be somewhat of a different question, who is the Jane Austen heroine that you see more of yourself in that character? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.